it's made to make you kind of enjoy it and laugh at it, but it's not made so that it's go again, the Breathedge example. Hey, haha, get it? Get it? Did you catch that joke?
We have arrived at the point in time where both of us have played Helldivers 2.
Yes.
I
noticed you've been playing it quite a bit too.
I have been trying to get in there every day just to see if I can do the daily mission. My personal missions, just to see if I can get some medals. Yes, I have played quite a bit on my own. And we even got a chance to do a little bit of tag teaming on one of those days. Went in for democracy, obviously.
For democracy, obviously.
On my Super Star Destroyer, the Superintendent of Family Values. Yeah.
Best type of superintendent.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's
mine
America.
Is the bringer of Starlight, so it's fine.
Yeah, I like that you bring all the starlight, so that's good. What we actually wanted to talk about, and something that I think has been sort of like in the space of like what Helldivers 2 is about how humor and comedy are used in games. And
as opposed to day of recording this, the kerfuffle with them having you require a Steam account to play it,
or PlayStation account,
and a PlayStation account, and to play it on Steam, which apparently was a requirement from the get-go that has just not gone into effect yet because they were having server issues or something like that. We're not talking about that. You can find all your news about that wherever it may be, and hopefully by the time this comes out, it's been resolved and they reversed it. Who knows?
My only 2 cents there is that yes, it has gotten review bombed pretty heavily since that news came down, and I get the sneaking suspicion, like so many of these things, that there will be a backpedaling on this before it actually takes effect. So, not going to worry too much about that at present. What I really wanted to talk about is the actual tone of Helldivers 2, and the way it presents itself, and also how it presents itself as opposed to some other games that also try to use humor in it.
When I had got it and I was playing it, I was like, you need to play this.
Yes.
I'm like, and it makes me want to talk about how comedy presents in games, because Helldivers is a fairly fun to play game, just on its own. Like the core gameplay is fine. It's fun. It's a bit silly, especially when you accidentally torch me with the flamethrower repeatedly.
Yes, yeah, I did like to torch you with the flamethrower.
But I personally am a fan of the way that it presents itself, its tone. Because it plays itself very straight.
Yes, it does. That was actually something that I really appreciated from the get-go, because when you get into Helldivers 2, there's a little cinematic at the beginning, where you're seeing basically their version of like a propaganda video about the bug menace that's coming down. Yeah. But it is played as if it is like an actual video that is going to be presented. There's no winking to the camera. This is presented as a serious message that is supposed to be presented in a serious way, even though it's almost impossible to take it seriously as an outside observer. From the get-go too, after they did that cinematic, and I saw it and I was like, well, this sets a wonderful tone for it. Just the initial training part then kind of gets you into the fact that we really can't take this seriously, but in the world of Helldivers, they take it incredibly seriously, only as an outside observer. When you're going through and you do a dive maneuver or a crouch maneuver, and the grizzled old, commander is talking about, like, that's the best diving I've ever seen, recruit. And eventually, after you do these very basic things that anyone who's ever played an online shooter game would be able to do pretty easily, they say, here's your cape. And you get your cape, and they then put you in charge immediately of a giant orbital platform after you have finally completed basic training. which I think is the funniest thing of all, that you just get a named battleship in your command after you completed basic training. With
Absolutely. You're
with
good
a
enough.
grizzled staff, like an experienced staff that is now working for you as a new recruit.
Yeah.
Great.
Why not?
Perfect.
I enjoy the fact that it takes itself very seriously in world,
Yes.
but outside of it, like looking at it, it is very silly. And I really enjoy that because I think I was telling you there's one of the modules you can upgrade on your ship called More Guns.
Yes.
And it's just, the description is, after however much research and development we've looked into this, we figured out the best way to get more firepower out of the cruiser is by adding more guns.
Yep, just pretty straightforward and matter of fact that's just the way of things. One of the other things I like is in the super credit store, if you look at the different items that are for sale, there will be little reviews down at the bottom of like people that, oh, I bought this for my husband, he really liked it, and one of them for like the helmets is like 9 out of 10 dentists agree. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it's just fascinating that they put all of this stuff in as just kind of like little nods to the world that it would be, because it's all being framed through the world being like, this is how they actually see the world. This is how they actually view the world in-game, in-universe. It's just so silly that they do. Like, it's a silly concept, but everybody inside of it is playing it completely straight. That is very different than the other examples that I wanted to talk about, which are Breathedge and Borderlands. We have both played those too. And so, Breathedge, we've talked about this before.
We did.
On the show, but I
never somewhere here.
Yeah, I'll put a card. But we've talked about Breathedge on the show and the idea about space and the void of space, but Breathedge always kind of annoyed me by the way that it frames humor, because in very different ways, Breathedge will wink to the camera almost in completely every single point of the way. It will be played very straightforward as far as like a space-based survival game, and then there's a chicken that's immortal that you can plug stuff with.
Yeah, that sounds weird out of context.
It is, and that's why I'm keeping it that way.
And then there's a quest to go search 100 different caskets in space. And then there are apparently 5 caskets in. They're like,
don't do it anymore. Yeah.
Just kidding.
They have a very, we're so random way of doing things in the game.
Early 2000s random XDR humor.
It's the thing where you like go and look at something that's in the distance that looks kind of fun, and the narrator speaks at like a mile a minute about like, can we come up with cute snarky jokes that we can put in here about what the scenario is? Very self-aware of itself, and more than happy to say, you get it?
I prefer more subtle humor a lot of the time with things like that, which is why I think I enjoy the lack of the wink and nod that you get in Helldivers 2.
Yeah.
Just that this is definitely serious, 100%. As you're looking at, a flagpole race for 2 minutes, so slowly, while it plays this overly dramatic anthem, while this camera drone is following it for posterity.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there going, this is hilarious. It's not supposed to be hilarious, but I know it's supposed to be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, this in actuality is stupid, but it's funny.
Yeah, it is.
If Breathedge were to do something like that, it would be like, hey, do you see this? It's really funny, guys.
There would be a narrator going over that, explaining like the reason why a flagpole needs to get raised for 2 minutes because of stuff. Like, I feel like Breathedge would have to explain itself to you, not because it thinks you don't understand it, but because it wants to be that guy. It wants to be like, I'm so smart and silly. Let me tell you why. Right. Exactly. Now, on a different basis, you have Borderlands. And it's interesting because Borderlands even has like a flag-raising mission or two in pre-sequel, where you basically help this one guy raise a flag for King Greg or whatever. But it doesn't just do that, where it's like the anthem coming over and he sings the anthem. You have to protect him while he's doing that from raiders. And then his arm gets heavy and you have to put like a crutch under his arm or a plunger or something to keep it raised. And so it's made to be basically like kind of a defense or an escort mission, the way that it's framed. The kind of humor that Borderlands does is much more, this is kind of a wacky crazy world with really wacky crazy characters in it. Yeah. And not necessarily we're coming up with a joke or, you know, a piece of humorous media. It's just in tone. And pretty much that's it.
In opposition to Helldivers 2, which plays it very straight and very serious while being hilarious, Borderlands also takes itself very serious in its own tone. It goes headfirst into its own tone. And that's fine. But it's the in-your-face wacky humor non-stop with Borderlands.
Right. In Breathedge, you have a situation where they're winking to the camera because they know that they're being referential. In Borderlands, everything is in-universe, but it is a wacky universe that's meant to be a wacky universe. So it's not winking to the camera, but everybody in the camera is winking at each other. It's basically,
especially if it's Tina.
Tina's basically a walking meme, so they're just...
And I can appreciate that. The characters in Borderlands are very, very interesting characters.
Yes.
I may not like them all. I may get annoyed at several of them often because of the fact that it is in your face all of the time.
Right.
I personally feel like if Borderlands toned down the humor a little bit, the game would be so much better for me.
Right.
Maybe I should turn the volume off.
Maybe, yeah.
But like the core of Borderlands, the gameplay is fairly good. It's fast-paced, it's fun, there's lots of loot. It's a little bit crazy sometimes, but it's fun. But the humor detracts from it to me, personally. I know you are a huge fan of, like, Claptrap.
Claptrap is not my favorite part of the game, but, no, I love the Borderlands series. I've played endlessly in all of the installments of it. Why I like it is because it is just a very over-the-top, big, bright, colorful, everything's, you know, guns are flying out of everywhere, loot explosions, or they put legs on guns for some of the tedier weapons when you reload them. It's wacky. It's wacky.
It's a wacky game that takes itself very seriously about how wacky it is.
It's very serious about how wacky it is, because even the villains are wacky. In every installation, the villains were not to be taken as truly, like, villainous. They were almost too silly, even when they were doing things that were terrible. And often when they killed off main characters, it was hard to take them as a serious threat because of how they acted in the game and the way they were presented. So
Borderlands is that cartoonishly evil villain you've got with the mustache swirl.
Yeah. They're basically tying your heroes to the, you know, intergalactic railway.
I feel like there was probably a mission where they did that at some point.
There probably was. I know that there was a train in one of those missions in, like, Psycho Craig's Into the Psychoverse or something, or whatever that was.
Probably.
But you fought the train. You actually had to battle.
Can you
train.
suplex it?
Oh god, I wish you could. I don't think
wrong game.
You have to smack it with it.
But yeah, so these are three very different games.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
And just the way that they approach comedy and humor is so very different. And it's interesting that you can have such different types of tone, different comedy, different variety in games that are all very much in my opinion, humor-based.
There's a lot of humor to be had in a lot of different games that are not necessarily all in on that. But I feel like the ones that we're talking about, it's integrated into the experience, where it is supposed to be part of the experience itself. Like, I could give you plenty of examples from big franchises, like Fallout, for instance, that has some pretty humorous situations and some pretty wacky ones that are meant to be pretty funny, but it doesn't really rely on that for the game itself. Those are kind of moments in time. When you meet Fantastic at the solar array in New Vegas, who is just completely oblivious to, God, what was that line that he had? They asked him a question like, oh, are you a theoretical physicist or something like that? And he says, I'm theoretically a physicist, and then they said I was hired. Like, it's...
I do vaguely remember this, yes.
Yeah, where they hired him to try and, make Helios 1 work, but he's an idiot, and but he was all they had, so... So he's in charge. It's moments in time like that, but it really isn't reliant on that, and the overall tone is much more serious.
Yes.
So there are plenty of games that utilize humor, and sometimes it's just for what the tone of the game is, and sometimes it is more overt. I don't think that the overt part works unless you really have a game that lends itself specifically to it. Unless you particularly have a writing team that's like a comedy writing team and you build the game around that. I think the way that Helldivers 2 does that comedy, where it's really just the world is comical by its inception, I think that works better.
I think it's more subversive in its humor anyways.
Yes. Yeah, I think that you're right about that.
It's kind of like a Starship Troopers.
Yes, absolutely. Very well influenced by Starship Troopers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Where overtly Borderlands, the entire universe of Borderlands is very overt with its humor, but it does it by being wacky.
Right.
And I think it mostly pulls it off. There's some times where it's just annoying, I think.
Yes. Yes.
But on the side note, again, Breathedge, both of us didn't really care for it, and I know we don't necessarily share the same sense of humor.
No.
I enjoy way more subtle things than I think you do a lot of times.
Yeah, and a lot of and a lot of my comedic leanings are either like darker comedy, or they're like non sequiturs kind of stuff, where it's just like off in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden it just kind of like comes out of left field. That kind of
That's
obscure.
why we like Too Many Cooks.
Yeah, too many
and
cooks.
Unedited footage of a bear.
That and the thing about it is, I don't even think Unedited Footage of a Bear has like a joke in the entirety of it. It is non sequitur the video. It's just like it goes off in a completely different direction.
But I enjoy the subtle. So Helldivers really appeals to me with how that's played. It just plays itself so straight, and I enjoy so much when something takes itself seriously and does not bat an eye.
Yeah.
At the ridiculous thing that just happens. Because then it's up to you as a player and as a consumer of that kind of media to be like, ha, that's fucking hilarious. It's made to make you kind of enjoy it and laugh at it, but it's not made so that it goes, again, the Breathedge example, hey, haha, get it? Did you catch that joke?
When you start to be in on the joke as the media itself, it stops being so funny. Because the movie, the game, whatever, is in on the joke, and they want you to know that they're in on the joke. There's something like an example that I would give from a movie. Did you ever see Dodgeball? The movie Dodgeball?
Yes.
It was a long time ago. Well, there's the whole thing where Alan Tudyk is just a pirate. At no point do they address that he's a pirate. Or seek to correct it. He just is a pirate for the whole movie, and no one brings it up. And I think it's one of the funniest things that they just accept that he's a pirate. He's always dressed that way. He talks that way, and it's never resolved that he stops being. It's just.
Yeah.
There's I think one moment where he tries to become not a pirate. And then he like slips back into it because his true self is being a pirate, and everyone just accepts it. And it's just one of the best things because
it doesn't call it out. It doesn't say anything about it. It doesn't bat an eye at it.
Right.
It's just, this is a thing.
This is just a thing
and
in the
I
world.
think I really enjoy that because it doesn't tell you that it's a joke.
Right.
It just takes itself seriously.
Right, exactly.
Which I think is some of the most fun humor to have with things.
Oh, yeah. Where the world, you can tell, is just absurd, but the world itself doesn't understand that it's absurd.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of absurdism. Both as a, like, psychology, maybe? No.
Whatever it is.
As, like, whatever.
An art form. Absurdist.
No.
Absurdist.
I'm a huge fan of the absurd, which is like in a universe that is out to like get you, like fight back by just not giving a fucking shit.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Kind of absurdism. I think that's fantastic. It's the opposition of nihilism, I think, which is, the world's out to get you, so everything's pointless.
Right.
I think someone had described it, absurdism is the world's out to get you, everything is pointless, so rail fucking harder against it.
Right, yeah.
Like, party until the lights go out, essentially. I think that's fantastic as a concept, but I'm also a huge fan of absurdist humor.
Right.
Which is probably why I enjoy things like Welcome to Night Vale, and my favorite book series has always been the 5-part trilogy that is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
Because that is just absurd to its core.
Yeah.
But that takes itself seriously as well a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, the answer is 42.
It is. I 100% want Don't Panic as a tattoo somewhere on my body somewhere.
There's I was going to share with you that I had seen something, I think I saw it on Twitter. Somebody asked the math teacher, like, what's the meaning of life? And the math teacher goes, math. And then if you, like, look at where, like, the letters in math, about, like, what order they are in the alphabet, and you add them up, it adds up to 42.
So really?
if you take what letter M, A, T, and H are in the alphabet, and what number, put them to a numerical value, and you add them up, it becomes 42.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even that 42 just being the one-off. If anyone knows anything about the Hitchhiker's Guide, they'll know 42.
Yeah.
What most people that haven't read the rest of the books don't know is that the question does get asked. Like, they figure out what the actual question is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read all the books.
I have not.
Cool. So spoiler here for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. If you don't want to know the question to the answer, then skip this. But we find out, like, in the first book, that the answer to life, the meaning, life, the universe, and everything is 42. Mm-hmm. And they go, 42? How? Like, and the computer's like, well, I guess it really means that you don't know what the question you're asking is.
Yeah.
So then they build a bigger computer to figure out what the question to life, the universe, and everything is.
Yeah.
To fit the answer 42. Turns out the answer happens to be, what do you get when you multiply 6 by 9?
Right. Which is 54. Yeah, which is 54, which means that the answer was incorrect to begin with.
And the line is, what do you get when you multiply 6 by 9? 42. I always knew there was something fundamentally flawed about the universe.
Right. The idea that the whole universe is built on flawed logic is fascinating.
Yes. Right. And so I enjoy the absurdism. I'm sure reading that as a teenager did not influence my life at all.
No, not in the least. I'm wondering, did you ever see, I know you don't watch a lot of television, but did you ever see The Good Place?
No, but I've seen, like, I know of it.
Okay. Because there's stuff in there where, they have to start contemplating, like, larger moral things and the state of the universe. And there's this whole thing, I don't even remember the full part of that, but it ends up being like a principle of how the universe works that you kind of have to understand. And it's Jeremy Bearimy, And like the one like ethics professor Chidi who's in there is going insane because he can't wrap its head around that the answer to like everything in the universe is essentially Jeremy Bearimy. And that it makes no sense to him, and he's like having a breakdown because it doesn't make sense to him, and it's kind of hilarious because the people who are like these celestial beings, it's like, yeah, what's the problem? But like for him, it's just completely it's obscure to the point where he doesn't even understand what's going on, and so that's funny. So I think the thing that works for Helldivers too, going back to where we started, is that this universe that you're in is very serious to the people that are inside of it, but it is really hard to take seriously for the people that are playing it from the outside looking in, which is the best part of it, really.
Yes.
And
I think that does come across to a lot of the players that will go for democracy all the time when you see them posting about it, or
yeah,
because you see those people doing posts on whatever, they're like for democracy, and everyone's like for democracy or for capitalism.
Yes,
it's like I feel like some of them are in on the joke. I don't feel like all of them are. I think some
of them
are
actually
just...
want that. some of them actually like that, which I think is media literacy, folks. It's not good, but it's not good.
Let us know down in the comments what your preferred type of comedy in games is. We only covered a couple of kinds of it here today.
Right.
But there is a lot. And give us some examples of games you've played or media you've consumed that has made you chuckle, maybe in a way we wouldn't have considered.
Right. Because, I mean, I haven't played a lot that were intentionally funny. I haven't played ones that were narratively driven to be a comedy. So I'd be interested in what you have out there. Let us know in the comments down below.